Stay tuned to hear Mike Kazerouni's personal experience with the Fair Credit Reporting Act.
Welcome to the YouTube channel of Michael J. Swanson. Michael is the author of How David Beats Goliath and is the CEO of Advocate Capital. And now, here's Michael.
Mike, I understand you have some personal experience with debt collectors. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, let me talk about that. My personal experience really wasn't with debt collector. It's one of those things that I talked about before, where you find out about something that you were never informed of before. It actually had to do more with my credit being damaged as a result of something that should have been avoided. So my wife and I moved several years ago from our home, and we sold the house and we relocated. And in the process, obviously, you make changes to your gas bill, your telephone bill, and all sorts of different things. A few years after selling that house, I was refinancing my current home. And in the process, my banker contacted me and said, "Hey, Mike, everything's fine, but I just wanted to let you know that on one of your credit reports, your credit has a collection item on there that substantially dropped your credit. And luckily for you, it's only on one, so it didn't really affect you, but you may want to take a look at it." And I was surprised, and I said, "What are you talking about?" And looked it up.
Right.
And sure enough, the local gas company had a collection item for $86 on my credit. Wow. And I'm thinking, I'm with the same gas company. My bills are all paid on time. I have no idea what it's about. Contacted the gas company only to find out that they had apparently sent a bill to my old house for the old house that never made its way to me. Now, mind you, I'm still with the same gas company, so I had just relocated. They have my contact information. I'm paying my bill on my current, gas bill, never late on it. And according to them, they send the bill to the other house, and then they send it to collections, and then that was it. It was in collections for $86. I had mail forwarded to my house. I never received the bill from them. I contacted them and said, "No problem. Here's the $86. Can you please mark this off? Because I've never even gotten collection calls from you folks.
Right.
Let alone the letter that you're saying you sent to me, which I haven't received. I received everything else." They said, "Sure, no problem." It just never happened. So we're talking few months. For a few months, I'm going back and forth with them, trying to get this thing marked off as paid, and hoping that they'll remove it off of my credit as a mistake. They refused to take it off as a credit because they said, "No, you owed the money and you never paid us." I said, "Not a problem. At least mark it off as paid. I'm giving you the full amount of money." So they took the money. A few months after, I checked my credit again to see if they marked it off. And lo and behold, they ended up marking it off as a charge-off, which then caused my credit to go even further down.
Right, that's even worse.
Right. So it would appear that I never paid them off, and they just decided to, say, "Hey, you know what? We decided to walk away from Mike Kazerouni because it was not worth pursuing this $86, which I had already paid to them over something I had absolutely no control over." I never received the collection letter. I never received collection calls. The only reason I found out about it is because it had affected my credit when I went to do the refinance. Now, my credit score had dropped by 180 points because of that, which is substantial. If anyone's familiar with credit scoring, that's a huge drop.
Oh, that's huge.
It can affect you renting cars. It can affect you getting a better rate for a home.
Right.
And I kept going back and forth with these guys to try to get it resolved. And finally, I had to give up. And I filed a lawsuit on it and was able to resolve it through the lawsuit, which was really completely unnecessary if they would have just done the right thing. Through that process, it ended up costing the gas company $5,000 for them to resolve something, which I had been willing to resolve for $86, which I did pay them.
Yeah.
And just so people who are watching this understand, it's not about making that $5,000. The cost of filing that lawsuit alone, by the time we did service and discovery, was over $1,200. It's the fact that it literally ruined my credit with one of the agencies that could have affected me, but for the fact that I was lucky enough that it was only reported to one of the agencies rather than the three. If it had made its way to all three agencies, my refinance would have been out the window at the rate I was trying to get. And that's, that's a perfect example of someone who's being responsible, who hasn't done anything wrong, and yet they're personally affected by something outside of their control. And but for some of these laws, like the Fair Credit Reporting Act law that I used in this case, I probably wouldn't have been able to get this thing fixed. It took a lawsuit to get it fixed, even though I paid them in full.
Right. Crazy.
Right.
Well, this is very educational for me. A town we raised our family on had another guy named Mike Swanson who didn't pay his bills. And I would get calls from his bill collectors once in a while. And I'd say, okay, I'm not that one. What do I have to tell you to convince you that I'm not the guy you're looking for? Fortunately, that never made it to my credit report, but what a nightmare for months.
It's a mess. Once it makes it on there, removing it, it's extremely difficult.
Because they're not motivated. They don't care. So
no,
so,
they don't. There's statistics out there that credit agencies get over 1 billion pieces of information on a monthly basis. It's when you receive that type of data, it's it's going to be pretty much guaranteed that sooner or later, somewhere in the process, you're going to mess up. The problem is once you report that to them, what are they doing about to fix it? Because your credit report, without it, you can't function in this society.
Absolutely. Yeah, I harp on that all the time about how important it is to have a good credit score. I've written about it. I've talked about it. Let's talk more about education of consumers like we're doing here today. I know that your law partner, Author Kazerouni, does really for free a lot of educational work on his podcast. It's called Know Your Rights, the Consumer Law Cast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The Consumer Law Cast is really our efforts to educate consumers about their rights, not only in the area of law that we do. We try to invite a lot of guests on the show to talk about what they do in the hopes of, arming consumers with the information they need to protect their own interests. And we cover a vast area, whether it's talking about product defects, talking about protecting kids, for example, from cigarette ads or not cigarettes anymore, but these Juul litigations, the vape pens, whether it's talking about protecting your kids on the internet, the sexual abuse cases that's going on right now. It's really to give consumers a window into the different areas of laws that are affecting them, in the hopes that if they ever come across one of these issues, they know where to turn or what their rights are. Abbas has done a great job on the podcast and not only educating people on the area of law that we're involved in, but also bringing in other consumer lawyers in the industry who are really fighting the good fight on behalf of consumers nationwide.
Right. And that's something I think some of the education I do is telling people the truth about what plaintiff lawyers do. They help people all day long. That's just what they do. I mean, helping people who've had an inconvenience, I guess, in the case of the credit score thing, but also people who've had the worst day in their life recently when their loved one was abused or a drunk driver caused some horrible injury to a loved one, things like that. So that's what makes our heart beat fast, is helping people like you help people. So that's got to be a great resource. Afterwards, we'll get the URL for that podcast and be sure to put it in this podcast, in this video, so consumers can go and look at those videos. I've looked at several of them, and I think they're excellent and interesting. And I'm constantly learning. There are a lot of laws there to protect people. They just don't know they're there, and they don't know how to go about it. And I also know that if not for contingent fee lawyers like you, or lawyers who are willing to work for the fees that are statutory, those laws wouldn't really matter, right? What good is the Seventh Amendment if you can't get a lawyer? And lawyers are expensive. So contingent fee contracts are so important. And I know that you are the keys to the courtroom for your clients all around the country. Mike, thanks again for being here. I know you're very busy managing all those 11 offices around the country and helping people. So we really appreciate it. Keep up the great fight.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
You bet.
Thanks for watching. Send your questions or comments to Michael at mike@howdavidbeatsgoliath.com.